Om Namo Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shiva Om, Shiva Hum, Om. Welcome to another Satsang with your host Chuck the Yogi from the Yogi Cave. As I explained in my last Satsang, I'm in a bit of a different setting in order to look at this new sutra, the Shiva Sutra. And so I'm sitting down in my yogi throne, chilling out, and I got this mount here found right in front of me, so it's a little bit closer, but that just gives me the chance to look at my screen as I explain and explore the Shiva Sutra with you. So please bear with me. Now, let me talk a little bit about the Shiva Sutra and why I'm going along with the Shiva Sutra after that monumental exploration of the Yoga Sutra. The reason for that is because, in my humble opinion, I find the Shiva Sutra to be one of the most concise and profound sutras, right up there with the Yoga Sutra. Excuse me. So I'm definitely including it for that reason. And yeah, so there's that. And then also, let me explain a little bit about the Shiva Sutra before I get into anything else. It has mysterious origins. There's no author, like with the Patanjali Sutra. There's no author attached to the Shiva Sutra. Therefore, it's considered to be written by Shiva himself, the Lord of Yogis. It was found, apparently, please correct me if I'm mistaken, etched on stone, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, which kind of is reminiscent of the Turkus of Tibet, because scriptures like the Tibetan Book of the Dead and scriptures like Seven Yogas and Naropa were said to be discovered centuries later in weird and remote crevices in the middle of nowhere up at around the Tibetan plateau. So the Shiva Sutra kind of shares that kind of legendary status, you could say. And so it adds an air of mystery to the sutra. And the other reason why I included the Shiva Sutra after this Yoga Sutra is because I've added a commentary to the Shiva Sutra. And it's been known since ancient times that yogis will do a commentary to a scripture or whatnot as proof and seal of their understanding of yoga. It's kind of like the Eastern equivalent of writing a thesis for a master's degree. So you could kind of see it that way. So anyway, now that that's explanations out of the way, I'll explain a little bit how I'm going to go about this before I get started. We'll start with the Sanskrit term, the Sanskrit Sutra itself. Then we'll move on to the translation of that sutra, and then we'll move on to my commentary, and then anything I might want to add to that commentary if I left something out or if I wanted to add something to it, then that's what I'll do throughout this whole sutra. So with that in mind, let's get started. All right, so section 1, 1.1, Sutra 1, Chaitanyamatma. Now forgive me, there's no diacritical marks here, and I only read Ramanji or the Roman letters, so if I am not perfect in my grammar of Sanskrit, please bear with me. So anyway, 1.1 again, Chaitanyamatma, the self is consciousness. That's the translation, and my commentary is as follows. Chaitanya is consciousness, Atma is the self. There are only two schools in Jambudvipa, which is our world, the Malkuth and the Tree of Life, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. The mind-only school and the matter-only school. In the West, these streams come down from Plato and Aristotle, respectively. So Plato would be kind of like the mind as distinct from matter, and Aristotle focuses more on matter. And from Aristotle, you get scholasticism in the West, you get atheism, you get materialism, let's put it that way, reductionism. Anyway, those that state that consciousness emerges from matter, call it an emergent phenomena, are the matter-only school, which includes, but is not limited to, atheists, existentialists, reductionists, nihilists. Those that state that matter emerges from mind are of the mind-only school. Clearly, we can see that the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal truth, to distinguish it from all other truths, is of the mind-only school. Now, mind-only, not as in there is only mind, although if you get into non-dualism, which I'm not going to get too deep into, the statement is that all is consciousness, but I'm parting from this understanding that mind is the foundation and then matter, the flowering, so to speak, of the tree of lives. Let's put it that way. The Nastikas, which are the heretics, are of the matter-only school. Buddhism and Jainism are also later dharmic branches of the mind-only school. The Semitic traditions, or Middle Eastern traditions, are a dualistic or Dvaita branch that emphasize the eternal duality between mind and matter. And you see some of that in Western philosophy, but you definitely see it in Semitic traditions. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Abrahamic traditions, let's put it that way. So this is culminated in the schizophrenia the Western mind experiences thanks to the philosophy of Descartes. Now, I'm not going to be too harsh on Descartes, but Descartes was in a difficult situation, right? He had to find a way to allow sciences to progress in a way that would satisfy the church, to make sure that the church would allow sciences to prosper. Descartes created a new version of dualism to allow mind to be the purview of the church and to allow matter to be the purview of science. That was the compromise, the philosophical compromise that he arrived in order to allow Western sciences to prosper. So I'm not going to be too hard on him, although I have been in the past. It's important to understand the context of Descartes and why that was important back then in the 1600s, which is in line with Western dualism, places an eternal rift between God and man, mind and matter. But if you look at the earliest roots of the Semitic tradition, she, too, is of the mind, God-only school. Jai Mahakan. I'm going to get too deep into what I mean by that, but if you move past Hezekiah, 7th century BC, and you go further deeper into the Semitic tradition, you will see that the earliest Semitic traditions emerge from this eternal tradition that we call in our school the Sanatana Dharma, or the eternal natural way of things. But I'm not going to get too deep into that because this is not the purview of that. So I'm going to leave it there. This is the first sutra, translation, and then commentary. You can see how much there is to unpack in this one sutra, and you can understand why the sutra was attributed to the Lord of Yogis himself. It is so densely packed. So yeah, I'm going to take my sweet time with it, like I would with like somebody would with a sweet wine, or a good wine, or an excellent pu'er tea or something like that, because it deserves that. And that's why I'm doing it now, right after the Yoga Sutra. So, anyway, Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Shivaya, Shiva Om, Shiva Hum, Jai Ma, Jai Mahakal. Till next time.